It's Keith Ayers here. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to be starting in about 3 minutes, so I just thought I'd say hello and show you that it is actually me. I'll turn my video off when I start the PowerPoint presentation, but we've got people from all over the world attending today. Great to see you on, Michelle, from Pennsylvania, and Bonnie from the northeast of the United States. Fantastic. And welcome. So getting into the evening for you, so not good morning. Okay, we've got quite a few more people still to come, but while we're doing that, I think most of you have done a DiSC profile, and Candy's going to put up a poll. Candice Schultz is working with me today as the producer of this show, if you can call it a show. And so there's the poll. What is your DiSC style? You'll notice we've combined DI and ID, SI and IS, etc. So there's 8 choices there, and we'll just see what the mix is of people who are here. So a few more to come. We've got 50% of you are in the DI/ID space. Okay. Those of you that are just joining, if you could respond to the poll, please, and share with us what your DiSC style is so we can see what the mix is. Not much in the S and C area at the moment. And I would have thought they would be the early birds. So here we go. One in the SCC area. Okay. All right. 9 out of 12. Coming up to 11 a.m. my time. So I'd like to get started on time for the benefit of those who are already here. We had 47 people who registered for today, so there's still quite a few to come, but I would like to get started on time. So, okay, Candy, if we could end the poll and share the results. Okay, we've got 4 people in the ISS area, 3 in the DIID area, 1 D, 1 SCCS, and 1 C. Okay, so before we get into the actual content, just the bit of history for those who don't know it, and I think there's a couple of people here who haven't caught up with the fact that there is even an Everything DiSC Agile EQ profile as yet. John Wiley and Sons, acquired Inkscape Publishing about 7 years ago, and Inkscape were the developers of the Everything DiSC profiles. And since Wiley took over, Wiley is a $2 billion global publishing company, very well known in the academic world, and if you've done any university courses, you more than likely have Wiley textbooks. And I said I was going to turn my camera off so we can sort of stop focusing on that and focus on what's coming up. But they've invested a lot of money in broadening the suite of products under the Everything DiSC banner, and in more recent years, 5 Behaviours of a Cohesive Team Powered by Everything DiSC, based on Patrick Lencioni's model from the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. We have a team version and a personal development version of that now. There's also an Agile EQ, Everything DiSC Productive Conflict Profile, which helps people understand how their DiSC style affects the way they behave in conflict and how to engage in more productive conflict. So Agile EQ is the most recent addition to the family, and it was launched, I think, in February of this year, was certainly this year. And talk about perfect timing for a product to launch, given that immediately after that, we got involved in the pandemic, and huge changes in people's lives, working from home, etc., and the need for emotional intelligence and the ability to be more agile with our emotional intelligence is even more important. I see there's a few people have been typing in the chat box. I'm just going to pop in and see, okay, if there's any questions. Oh, Candy's already looking after that. Okay, yes, good to see you too, Bonnie. Bonnie's in the Boston area. Okay, thanks for that. And if you have any questions, there's a Q&A box or thing on your dashboard there, as well as the chat box. So feel free to add comments or ask questions as we go through. And if I don't pick them up as we go, we will certainly look after that at the end. Okay, so agility. About 2 years ago, I was attending a Wiley conference in Europe for the international partners, and the term VUCA was brought up, and I hadn't heard it before. I've since heard it many, many times, and I've even heard a military leader talking about the importance of the military adapting to the VUCA world that we live in now. And then when we look at these 4 words, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, it's on spades now with what's happened with COVID-19. And still a lot of uncertainty until there's a virus that's being successfully implemented around the world. Who knows how long this is going to go on and what impact it's going to have. So, this has been building up. It's not just the pandemic that's caused this. And there's been things like the disruption in business, Uber, Airbnb, etc., have really disrupted some industries significantly, some more so than others, which again, that requires agility. Teams are changing from people working in an intact team and just working with those people to people working with multiple teams. As this illustration shows here, and the ability to adapt to do that. But also what that means is the need for a new set of talents to deal with many different kinds of people. So agility has been a bit of a buzzword for a while now, and a lot of it's been around agile organizations and systems and processes and agile workplaces, and people not having a permanent desk, but coming in and choosing a desk for the day or the time that they're there, people needing to be more adaptable. But for that to succeed, people need to be agile, right? They need to be resilient, adaptable, collaborative, and obviously able to embrace change. So Wiley did a survey early this year of 2,500 people, asking them about the need for agility. And as you can see here, in terms of individual contributors, 90% of them said that it's more important to their success now than it was 5 years ago. Managers and above, 95% of them said it's more important to their organization's success now. And 97% of leaders agreed that developing emotional intelligence is crucial to building an agile workforce. So I want to look at this emotional intelligence from a DiSC perspective. But before we do that, let's review what is emotional intelligence. Now, I'm using Daniel Goleman's model here. I think anyone who's read anything about emotional intelligence would have read some of Daniel Goleman's work. And yes, there are other models around, but I just like the simplicity of this, that we have awareness is the first step in being emotionally intelligent. Am I aware of myself and my feelings and my needs and how that's affecting what I do? Social awareness is the interpersonal side of that, is being aware of others. And of course, DiSC is a very powerful tool for that in terms of helping people understand themselves and then understand the others around them, whether they're living with them or working with them. And these days, we're maybe living with them and working from home as well. So, and then the second step in the emotional intelligence competencies defined by Goleman was the management piece. So being self-aware is one thing, managing myself and my emotions and my behavior is when we really become more emotionally intelligent. If the awareness is only the awareness is there, we don't have the management, then we're not really that emotionally intelligent. Okay, and then on the interpersonal side, of course, we've got relationship management and adapting to work with other people and build trust relationships and so on. Okay, so Wiley came up with this description for an everything DiSC approach to emotional intelligence, and that it's the ability to adapt my behaviours, thoughts and emotions to best meet the demands of a wide variety of interpersonal or emotionally charged situations. So yes, it's about the interpersonal, but it's also about the situation, and that's what we're going to be focusing more on in the Agile EQ profile, is how do I adapt to the situations I find myself in my work environment. And then from an agility point of view, what does agility mean? Well, it's the ability to move quickly and easily, of course. It's pretty straightforward. But do we have that ability? Because adapting behavior, moving out of my comfort zone is uncomfortable. And so there's a natural tendency to resist doing that, okay? So before I dive into the profile and the kit, I just want to remind you about the whole person concept. This is an Integro model, it's not a Wiley model. There are other variations of iceberg model floating around. This is the one that I've been using since I started with Integro over 40 years ago. And it's a simple way of looking at a whole person. And the person behaves the way they do because of their thinking and feeling, their values and beliefs and their needs. And the needs are at the bottom of the iceberg because that's the most instinctive thing. And I think most of you have probably seen this model, even if not seen me present this model many times. And I use it because DiSC is a needs-driven behavioral model. The behavior at the tip of the iceberg is your DiSC style. That's how you behave. Why do you behave that way? Because it satisfies your needs. You instinctively behave that way. People don't get up in the morning and say, I think I'll use my S behavior today. They just head out and use S behavior without consciously even thinking about it for a lot of the time. Right? And yes, they may need to adapt and be more assertive in one situation, more outgoing in another. But essentially, that S behavior satisfies their need for acceptance and being in harmony and things like that. Okay. We also have values and beliefs, which also drive behavior. But from a DiSC point of view, it's the needs that start it. Now, Wiley haven't got anything in the workplace profile, management profile, leadership profiles about DiSC being a needs-driven behavioral model. Why? Because they chose not to for some reason. However, now with the Agile EQ profile, we're going to find that actually our needs are shown quite clearly as to how our needs affect our emotional intelligence. Okay. All right. So we have a kit like all of the other everything DiSC profiles in the family. There's a facilitator kit with PowerPoint, with video, with participant handouts, facilitator guide, everything you would need for a plug and play training program around the Agile EQ profile. Okay, so I'm going to share some of the kit with you in terms of PowerPoints and some of the videos. The video between Agile EQ and the workplace profile. So on the left, if you're not familiar with the most recent everything DiSC profiles, the one on the left is the most commonly used profile, the workplace profile. And the words around the outside are the priorities, all right? And so here you can see there's a dot representing a D style person and a dot representing a CS style person, all right? And the focus of the workplace profile is, first of all, understanding where I am and then learning to relate to people who are somewhere different from me. So in this case, let's say the D style person has got their profile and they notice that one of their co-workers is a CS style person. So what do I need to do to adapt to relate to that person, to communicate more effectively, is the focus of the application from the workplace profile. So it's all about building relationships, improving communication, improving teamwork, etc. Okay, and likewise, of course, for the CS style person to learn to adapt to relate to the D style. And we have priorities around the outside, and each person is given 3 priorities, the one closest to their dot and the ones either side of that. All right. There's possibility of additional priorities, but I won't get into that just at the moment. So the Agile EQ profile on the right shows a dot of, again, a D style person tending towards DI perhaps. And we see the arrows pointing down to the other part of the DiSC map. And around the outside, we don't call them priorities here, we call them mindsets. And we're going to talk in a moment just about what do we mean by mindsets and why is that important. And so, and we're going to come back and revisit this D-style person to see what do they need to do to use a composed mindset or a receptive mindset or an empathizing mindset, and why would they want to do that anyway? All right. So the difference being that here we're not talking about adapting to people, we're talking about adapting to situations where a receptive mindset would be a benefit to me. And whenever I'm doing anything with the Agile EQ profile, and I've got a group of people in the room, and I do a lot of work with senior executives, and I was presenting to a group of CEOs a while back, and there were quite a few of them in the room with D-style people. And I just asked the question, has anyone ever told you that you need to listen more? In other words, to use a receptive mindset. And they all just look at you and laugh, because they've been told many times, of course. And so, okay, so let's look at the model behind the Agile EQ profile. There's 3 stages in the profile. The first one is discovering your style and your EQ strengths. And that's an important point there, because everyone has EQ strengths, okay? Secondly is to recognize the value of the other mindsets or other approaches, and then building an action plan on how to adapt. And so that's the structure of the profile and the facilitation materials in this half-day workshop that it was designed for. All right, it is possible, and Wiley have provided us with facilitation materials for a 2-hour virtual workshop to take people through their Agile EQ profiles in 2 hours. We've done a number of those, and we've found that it's actually pretty hard to do it in 2 hours because there's so much in it, and people want to see more of the videos and stuff like that. Okay, so on page 5 in the profile, you will see this graphic, and it's one of my favorite pages because at a glance you can see what the mindset strengths are for each of the DiSC styles. All right, so an important point here is that all styles have strengths, and where in the other profiles people get 3 priorities, the one closest to their dot and the one on the side, in the Agile EQ profile each person gets the mindset strength that's closest to their dot and the ones either side. So for me, my profile is an SI style. So the empathizing mindset is my strongest. Second, because I'm on the SI side, not the Ayers side, would be receptive, staying open to others. And then my third strength would be being more outgoing and establishing and maintaining relationships, etc. Okay, and typically the mindsets that are furthest from my style, over on the left-hand side there, would be the ones that would be more of a challenge for me to adapt to do. Okay, now unlike most other EQ assessments, which measure whether you're high or low in EQ, and coming out low can be quite devastating for people. To get a result that just says you've got very little EQ. In Agile EQ, everybody starts off with 3 strengths. Now, there is a part of the assessment, which I'll come to later, that gives an indication of just how able are you to adapt to use mindsets that are not natural to you, because you've answered additional questions when you take the assessment. So it's giving you some indication of how much effort you need to put out, and we'll see how that works. Okay, so why mindset? Why that language? Because it's about your thinking. Now, yes, your thinking is impacted by your needs and your values from looking back at the whole person concept. But here it's about consciously changing the way you think to take on another mindset. It's not about changing your values. It's not about changing your behavioral style. Yes, your behavior needs to change as well to some extent, but it's the thinking that's going to drive that. So it's a more conscious level decision that we're talking about. So in the profile itself, pages 6 and 7 show the 3 strengths. Now this is not me, this is an Ayers style. This is the sample report. For those of you that have an Everything DiSC Epic account, can go in and produce a sample report, and it'll be Sabina. And Sabina's an Ayers style, and she's quite strongly inclined, as you can see there. And so her 3 strengths in terms of mindsets are empathizing, outgoing, and receptive. All right. And it really sort of builds up the positivity of the thing, because yeah, I'm good at that. But if I get stuck in this mindset, for example, on the empathizing mindset, she might become so focused on feelings that you excuse poor behavior or performance, right? And or rush in to soothe someone when a different response might be more helpful. So it's really about building that self-awareness about your strengths and when they work really well for you and when they might not work for you. And when they might not work for you is when you need to learn to use a different mindset. Okay, so that's part 1, and still on part 1 is in the discover part. We're getting emotional buy-in here, and part of the emotional buy-in is building on those strengths and talking about those strengths, and then understanding those strengths better. So here's page 8 in the profile. This is my favorite page, and I'll show you why in just a moment. But it's saying these are your 3 primary strengths in terms of mindsets. And the other thing that's really interesting on this page, which helps to increase that emotional buy-in, is my effect on others. So this is a CD style we're looking at now, all right? And the CD style strengths are being objective, being resolute, and self-assured, right? So quite different. That's the complete opposite of me and Sabina. And on this page, it tells this person that other people value your expertise, they know your standards are high, they trust your critical thinking. They may wonder if I like them, and they may worry I'm dissatisfied, all right? So this is so accurate. I mean, when I read mine, it was like, how do they know that? But I've had people who are CD style people read this kind of thing and say, you know, I've often wondered about whether people like me or not, you know, because their focus is on the task rather than on the relationship. And so sometimes they stop and think and say, I wonder if people are getting the impression that I'm not happy with what's going on here. So, and then also on that page is the well, I think the most important piece. And here are the needs that power my EQ. Now, in the case of this CD style person, that is to be competent, to meet high standards, to protect my dignity and credibility, and to have control and independence, all right? And they're the needs that drive those EQ strengths, okay? So we're going to have a look at what might happen as a result of having those needs and how that might impact on this person's ability to adapt. So say, for example, this CD style person wanted to adapt to use a dynamic mindset, all right? Well, they're going to have to fight thoughts like, this idea doesn't work out, I'll look ridiculous. All right. So the dynamic mindset, of course, being initiating action on your ideas. influencing people and projecting a strong social presence. Okay, for someone with a CD style, they're going to have these thoughts pop up into their mind that, gee, I might look ridiculous if this doesn't work out. Why would they think that? Because of their need to meet high standards and to protect their dignity and credibility. A different example of adapting would be to use the empathizing mindset, which is reaching out with compassion, seeking to understand people's emotional needs and struggles and being supportive. Right? They might have to fight thoughts like, why do people need to be emotional? Why can't they just get over it? Right? So in this case, their need to be competent and be in control and independent could drive them to dismiss the emotional needs of others. Right? So that's the big part of this, is the awareness of how do my needs create my strengths, but how do they also make it challenging for me to move across to use a different mindset and what's going to be going on for me. So I can recognize it when it comes up and learn to adapt to that. Okay, so so back now to our three-step model. Going to go on to the second part, which is recognize the value of others. And in module 2, the purpose of this is to open their eyes to the possibilities of using additional mindsets, and also normalizes the struggle. All right, so because everyone else that they're going to be talking with in this workshop and going through the profile, and in the virtual workshop, we'll be having a number of breakout room activities where they'll get to talk with people and share things with each other. And they find that everybody struggles with something, all right? And that's normal, okay? And also to realize that, you know what, I could be more self-assured if I really would be better off if I was more self-assured, if self-assured is a mindset that they struggle with from the D style, okay? All right, so in the profile, there are 5 pages that look at the 5 mindsets that don't come naturally to you. All right, so you've got the 3 strengths which come naturally, and then the other 5 mindsets. There's a page devoted to each of those. All right, and this explains a bit more about that mindset, and it also talks about why you should do it. All right. And when you might need to use this resolute mindset to defend your ideas, etc. Okay. So this again is Sabina, who, if you recall, is an IS style. Okay. And you'll notice here that the comfort meter shows how much effort Sabine is going to have to use to switch over and use the resolute mindset. Now, you can see that she's almost in the green area, so she's got to use some effort, but not a lot. All right, and you would expect that someone with the SI style would be around in the red area and would need to use a lot of effort. All right, this is where the additional questions come from, the product-specific questions that you respond to when taking this profile, is asking you questions about your ability to adapt to use different mindsets. All right. You don't know that's what it's asking you to do. It's just asking you these questions and you respond. In this case, Sabina has indicated that she has some ability to use a resolute mindset, but she could be more effective. The other thing, important part of these 5 pages for each of the mindsets is the why do it section. All right. Why should we do this? Because obviously if someone's going to put out the effort, they need to believe it's worthwhile. And so the profile actually helps them think about the benefits for them personally. And this is tailored to their style as well. Okay. And so, as I said, there are 5 pages of those. And in the action planning section, people are going to be choosing one of those mindsets that they want to work on now, or the one that they think would be most beneficial for them at this point in time. Okay, so let's go back to our D style person, and what we're going to be looking at, what we're measuring in terms of the degree of effort that we need to put in. How much comfort do you have stretching to a given mindset? So let's look first of all Here's our D style person. We're going to start with a composed mindset. All right. And in the assessment, when they're responding to it, there are 20 questions that are asking you things like, how easy or difficult is it for you to do the following? Stopping myself when I'm really impatient from interrupting the other person. All right. Now, for this D-style person to get a score of a lot on the comfort meter or the effort meter indicates that they responded by saying, it's difficult for me to do this. All right, to stop myself when I'm really impatient. Okay. And obviously the composed mindset would be someone who's very patient and able to step back, listen to others, etc. Okay. Let's look at the receptive mindset, right? That's about staying open to others' ideas, being willing to compromise, right? Willing to listen. And one of the questions that was measuring that was listening to other people's opinions when I already know the right path to take is not really being receptive. All right. And so again, this person came up with, I need to put a lot of effort in to be more effective at the receptive mindset. And then one for the empathizing mindset. Okay, one of the questions was setting aside your sense of urgency to consider others' feelings and needs. Okay, and again, this D-style person, when that sense of urgency is kicking in for them, they're going to find it more difficult to do that. Okay, so that's how the assessment is measuring where you sit on each of the comfort zones or the effort meters for the 5 mindsets that don't come naturally to you. Okay, all right, so we're going to get into the action part of the session and the program. And those of you familiar with the workplace profile and facilitator kit will recognize Sally, Stephanie, Tom, and Dante. Sally, Tom, and Dante is sort of a little grayed out a bit, only because I've already been practicing and clicking on their names to go to their video. So, and I didn't click on Stephanie because I'm more familiar with that video. So here we have some videos that are showing each of these persons in a situation where their mindset isn't working for them, but they continue to get stuck in their mindset, all right, when they're discussing something with the team. And then we're going to look at some examples of how they might adapt their mindset, okay? So I hope your bandwidth is effective enough for you to be able to see the video, okay? In most cases, people find the audio works fine. We are recording this, so if for some reason the video doesn't work as well for you, you will be able to catch up with it on the recording that we send you. That seems to work pretty well. Okay, so Candice is going to give you a poll to do now. I'm going to get you to choose which of these 4 characters would you like to see the video for. We haven't got time for all of them, so we're going to focus in on one person in particular. And we'll go with the one that has the most, looks like it's Sally by a mile. Okay, all right. I just want to share that result then, Candy, so you can see that we've got 10 people selected Sally, which was 50% of the group. Okay, we've actually got more than 20 people on, but we've got 10 people who responded to that. Okay, so we're going to look at Sally. All right, and we're going to see Sally's natural mindset. We're going to see Sally in a meeting with Stephanie, Tom, and Dante. So we've got one of each of the 4 styles, and we'll see how she reacts to that situation.
So I was wondering if we could revisit Project Active.
I know, I just didn't realize I hadn't shared my computer sound. I've done that now. I'll just back up a bit.
It's rollout since I'm still feeling a little shaky about.
Okay, we should be right now.
We should probably take some time away.
I think we could.
So
Probably clear this
I
up.
was wondering if we could revisit Project Accolade's rollout since I'm still feeling a little shaky about the whole thing.
Sure, there's still some stuff to iron out anyways.
Iron out? I thought we were moving forward.
Can you hear it?
Well, I'm worried that some of the clients might find some of the changes, well, alienating.
Why alienating?
Like when we lost the Paulson account. Remember that?
The Paulson account. That was a totally different situation. Losing the Paulson account was a one-off.
Well, yeah, in some ways, but still, don't you think we should consider the possible ripple effects?
We have considered it, and this is a sure thing. I mean, fresh ideas, staying relevant. Why wouldn't we do it?
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but
I can't believe we're back here again. The rollout, it's the right move.
you know, have we thought through how this change could affect the packaging department?
Well, they're incredible. Packaging can handle it, they always do.
I don't think it's as easy as you're making it out to be. I think we need more time to think this through.
We've actually got to do something. The path is clear, folks. I mean, I'd be happy to take charge, take the lead if that's the issue.
That's really not the problem.
I think we're all aware that you're willing to lead.
Yeah.
Somebody has to. I mean, I could email Jen right now and get the whole matter handled.
No, listen, I think it's clear that the team is still wrestling with this.
That's the problem. We should not still be wrestling, not so much on the line. I don't know what else I need to say.
If we could just have one more meeting, I think that might actually...
Look, either way, you're going to realize that this rollout is the way to go. And meanwhile, I'm going to email Jen and tell her I can get this thing moving.
Okay. So, Sally's natural mindset, being a D style, is the self-assured mindset. And she was so confident that she was right, she just didn't respond very positively to anything anyone else had to say and was continuing to push forward with her idea. Okay. So fortunately, Sally came along to an Agile EQ session and learned that there are other alternatives than just using the self-assured mindset, all right? And so I'm going to, the program gives us two choices. We can see Sally switching to a composed mindset or to a receptive mindset. And I'm going to share with you the receptive mindset because it's the most direct opposite to her D style in the S style area. And so we're going to see Sally adapting and using that mindset. Now, the thing I want to emphasize here is that this is the best, to me, the best part of this program is when you can actually see that it can be done, that someone with a D style can, in fact, switch and become a more effective listener and really consider other people's ideas. Okay, we all know that they can anyway, but it's for participants who maybe come from the D style who struggle with that. The visual of the video really helps. So here we go.
We have considered it, and this is a sure thing. I mean, fresh ideas, staying relevant. Why wouldn't we do it?
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but, you know, it's more complicated than that.
I can't believe we're back here again. The rollout, it's the right move.
But have we thought how this change could affect the packaging department?
Okay, I feel sure about this, but he doesn't. Okay, you should just set it aside, stay open. So you really think this is gonna throw packaging for a loop?
Yeah. They're pretty stick to the book kind of people.
Yeah. Well, Charlie sure does like his routine.
It's the same roast beef sandwich for lunch every day.
Yeah, I just think, you know, if we're going to switch things around, they're going to want a step-by-step process of what's changed.
Yeah, I get that. Just make it clear, keep it simple. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, right. And don't get me wrong, I think we should move on this. I just think we should make sure everyone's in the loop.
Okay, I get that. But I am sure it will all work out. Maybe we meet in the middle. So, how long do you think this will take?
Oh, a day, maybe two, depending.
Oh, wow. That quick?
Yeah, it shouldn't take long.
Could we give them a deadline too, just to be safe?
Good idea.
Yeah, look, I know you want to move on this like yesterday.
Yeah, but I get it. It'll be good to check in with Charlie and his team. And then it's go, 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 yeah?
Okay, so you'll notice, obviously she's acting, but I think it's very realistic, and the thought process coming through in the mind as well, verbally there is really helpful. So you'll see on the screen there that at the bottom we have a choice here of going back to the main menu or going to Sally's other mindset. So as a facilitator, they've set up the PowerPoint so that we can go to any video just jumping around, like we can click on go back to the main menu and we go back to the 4 people. So we could now go and watch someone else, and or we could have gone to see Sally using a composed mindset instead of a receptive mindset. All right, so I don't have time to show you very many more videos. We do in the workshop that we do, the virtual workshop, obviously because it's about learning to adapt to use those different mindsets. And so I want to move on to that now, because my goal is to get through everything and have question time in the time we've got. So first of all, to go to the ACT section of the profile and the facilitation, we've got to move on from being awareness of the other mindsets and that we can make different choices, and then build an action plan to become more agile. Now, the profile has a lot of information here to help people be more, become more agile in their emotional intelligence. And you can see here on page 15, which is the page on the left there, Sabina, learn how you can stretch to the other mindsets on the following pages. And so for each of the 5 mindsets that don't come naturally for her, there are 2 pages, and she can select which one she wants to go to. In this case, she's selecting the composed mindset, as you can see on the right-hand side there. All right, and on that page, you will see that there's a paragraph explaining how to get into that mindset. To stay composed, you may need to fight thoughts like, they have to understand what they're doing to me, this wasn't my fault, etc. Okay, so it's very cleverly done, I think, because it's coming up with thoughts that, you know, I might typically have if I'm stretching myself outside my comfort zone in that direction. And then where should you start? And for each of these mindsets, it's giving me a beginner, intermediate, and advanced choice. And if you read the descriptions there, you'll see that the idea is you read the description and say, well, yeah, I'm actually doing the beginner stuff, but I think I need to work on this intermediate stuff. Or maybe I'm doing beginner and intermediate. I think I'm nearly at that advanced level. I've learned to stretch a little bit, but I've got a bit more to go. Okay, so going in a little more detail into the action planning section, we've got the where should you start, and then on the next page, the second page for each of the mindsets, the one in the middle there, the taking action to be composed, it's actually going into more detail on the beginner step, the intermediate step, and the advanced step, so that you can actually use that information to build an action plan. And then there's an action planning page in the profile itself. So you really don't even need a workbook for facilitating this profile with people. Okay, and I believe that action plan page is also available in the facilitator kit as a PDF file, so that you can supply it to your participants to work on other mindsets if they want to go on to do a second or a third one. We'd recommend they work on one at a time, but there's a lot that they can do. Okay, so moving forward, you can develop your emotional intelligence, but it takes practice, right? And that's, I think, the beauty of this approach to explaining emotional intelligence through the DiSC profile, that we do actually have strengths, and I can develop the others. It looks realistic. Watching the videos helps me to understand that. Be sure to keep your action plan nearby and refer to it frequently. Create reminders to remind you, and as you master one step of mindset, move on to the next one. Okay, so I'm going to just check. I see that we've got some questions in the Q&A area. will your EQ strength align with your DiSC profile? The answer to that is yes. That's the whole idea of it. So if you've not done a DiSC profile before and you come straight into doing Agile EQ, you would answer the adaptive testing assessment that is common to all DiSC profiles, right? That measure where your dot falls in the DiSC map. And then you would be answering the 20 additional questions to determine your comfort with using different mindsets that may not be so comfortable for you, okay? So the profile's always going to be giving you the 3 EQ strengths that align with where your dot falls, okay? Second question is, what are some scenarios where Agile EQ can be referred to a client? Ooh, so many. In my opinion, I'm probably biased, but I mean, right now, with some people still working from home and having to deal with their colleagues and teammates electronically, Zoom meetings, phone, etc. It's a very different environment to what they're used to, and also with the changes that are taking place in the work that they're doing, changing demands on people. The need to be more agile has never been greater, I think. So I think it would be great to run it with a team. We've done it with our team here at Integro. As we do with any new profile, we are also fortunate that we get to beta test it before it gets launched. So we've had a bit of a preview of it, and we were able to provide some feedback to Wiley before they launch it. And it helps us as a team to understand each other on another level now, all right? And we have some really great conversations with each other because majority of our team is S or SI or SC style. And we've got a couple in the C quadrant and a couple in the DI sort of area. But the rest of us are all in the S area. And so being self-assured and being resolute doesn't come naturally to too many of us. But being aware of that and encouraging each other, because the team knows that, has made it a lot more effective for us and helps us work together better as a team. Okay, I hope I've answered that question. How would it be placed alongside productive EQ profiles? I'm not sure I understand what is meant by that, by productive EQ. The thing that's, I'm familiar with Genos as an EQ assessment, and it's measuring how much emotional intelligence you've got around a whole range of competencies. And it's measuring whether you're high or low on those competencies. And the difference here is we're not measuring whether someone is high or low on emotional intelligence. We're saying that everyone has some strengths, and that's based on your D style. And I think what I've seen is that some of what we call strengths in the DiSC, CD, C area may not be called strengths in other people's minds as far as being emotionally intelligent is concerned. Like being resolute, standing your ground in the face of opposition, speaking up about problems and pushing through any resistance, all right? Is that emotional intelligence? If you just read it like that, you might think that it's, well, that's just being stubborn or single-minded or inflexible, all right? But it is an emotional intelligence strength. And for people who are on the right-hand side of the DiSC model, it's a strength they need to learn, okay? So what is a good time frame for a client to see value from doing this profile in their teams? Is there a time frame they should revisit it with the same content, or is there anything following the use of these profiles that can be used? There is so much in the facilitator kit, so many videos. I've skipped over a whole section of videos which describe each of the 8 mindsets. I skipped over them because each of those videos is over 5 minutes in length. And it's a person from that mindset describing what it's like to use that mindset and where it benefits them and where they may get stuck in it and stuff like that. All right, so there's 8 of those videos. There's 4 styles, and each style the video I showed you for Sally has 2 additional videos for the way they can adapt. All right, so that's another 12 videos. Okay, and there are additional videos to that too. So you really would take a long time if you used all of those videos in one hit, and it would be too much for people. I think you need to get people started on applying it, and then you can run several follow-up sessions where you can actually work on a different mindset and use some of the videos from the kit. Okay. Candace asks, another Candace, will Agile EQ be available on Catalyst? The answer is absolutely yes. For those who don't know what Catalyst is, it's a new platform that Wiley have launched a couple of months ago. And at this stage, only the workplace profile is on Catalyst. They already have plans to include Agile EQ and the Everything Is Productive conflict profile on Catalyst. And so keep your eyes and ears open. You'll be hearing more from us soon when those are made available on Catalyst. Okay. So we don't have any timeframes. We know they're currently working on Agile EQ. And I believe that will be the second one that will be added. Okay. Do I see VUCA and David Rock scarf interchangeable? Oh, no, I don't actually. I see scarf as people's awareness of that being helpful in how they might react in a VUCA environment. But you know, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment is really describing the world that we're in, or the environment they're in, and then how do we manage that? How do we handle that? And having the self-awareness is a big part of that. I referenced Goleman's EQ theories. Can you talk further about how Agile EQ links into his thoughts? I think just everything DiSC, workplace profile, right, provides a tool for increasing self-awareness, increasing awareness of others, increasing self-management, increases relationship management. By looking at my relationships with others and how do I adapt to another individual. Agile EQ takes a slightly different approach in saying, well, now I'm not looking at other people so much, I'm looking at this situation I'm in, all right? And in that video, for example, with Sally, you know, she was convinced that her way was the right way, and if she stuck in her self-assured mindset, all she did was build up resistance, and she wasn't really going to get the cooperation or collaboration that she wanted from other people. And so the recognition, the awareness that, you know, maybe there's another way, maybe I need to hear what they've got to say more and reconsider that, results in greater self-awareness. But then the self-management piece is actually moving into that receptive mindset and behaving accordingly. So it's the self-management, but it's also relationship management and awareness of others. And to me, Goleman's model explains why these tools really work, but actually then use the tools to make sure that you're increasing self-awareness and self-management, relationship management, etc. Okay. I hope that's answered the question, Andrew. Doesn't appear that we have any other questions there. We got anything in the chat box, Candy? Okay, no, it doesn't look like it. Are there any other questions? Happy to stay on for a bit if you have. Okay, doesn't look like there's any more comments or questions coming through. Just before I wrap up, I'd just like to let you know that we have been running a series of Agile EQ virtual workshops where you actually take the profile and attend a workshop. And part of the purpose of this is to show you how you could also run this as a virtual workshop with your own clients. And the next one is on the 28th of October. I'll get Candy to follow up with an email she'll be sending out a link to the recording as well. And so 28th of October, typically we go from 10:30 to 12:30, 2 hours. Actually, I think this is the one that Alicia's been doing them, and I'm doing the next one, but we've been taking a little bit longer, but we'll clarify all that by email. So it's $250 to participate in that virtual workshop. That includes the price of your profile, which is close to $200 on its own. And of course, if you then want to facilitate it yourself, we can provide you with facilitation materials Wiley have put together for the virtual workshop. Okay. If you're interested in the facilitator kit, just contact our office, Integro support@integro.com.au or 1-800-222-902. Okay. There's a question. We've got a few questions. One is a thank you. Great, thank you. Is this workshop the best way to get started if the team hasn't done DiSC before? You know, you can for sure start with this if they haven't done DiSC before. It's designed that way, the facilitator kit's designed that way. I didn't mention it, but in the profile on page 3 and 4, it's just got what is everything DiSC, an overview of the DiSC model, your DiSC style. It mentions about your dot, the 12 styles, and whether you're close to the edge or close to the center. So there's some basic DiSC information there before you get into the Agile EQ. Hi, Michelle. Yeah, Michelle's question is, we talk about resilience, how does that relate to agility? And I would see resilience as being an emotional intelligence strength, and I would relate it to being resolute. It actually reminds me of Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, where he talked about level 5 leaders and their will and their humility. And the humility really comes from the SC style, more composed mindset, but the will that he talks about, the determination to continue on and achieve the results. So I know that resilience isn't necessarily just about tasks or work or goals, but I do think that to be resilient, you've got to be willing to stand up to opposition and stand your ground, which is the resolute, but also some of the self-assured, asserting your opinions and rights and projecting confidence in your ideas and abilities. So yeah, no, that's my thoughts on it anyway, Michelle, and it's really great to see you here too. It's been a while. $1,600 is the price of the facilitator kit. No other questions. I've got a few more comments in the chat box. Okay, now the question is the Agile EQ facilitator kit included in the 250? No, the profile is nearly 200 on its own. The kit is $1,600, as I just mentioned. Someone else asked that question. question here is time between doing DiSC and Agile EQ, please. I would, if you did workplace profile first, and I think there's some real benefits in doing that, because it gets people thinking about relationships and thinking about adaptability, and then the Agile EQ takes them to another level. I would make sure they're actually doing some things. So having team meetings where they're following up on their workplace profile discussions, and especially if you're doing it in Catalyst, where people can see where their teammates are, and you can create activities for them to connect with each other, to follow up on the training, and doing follow-up sessions, like the 5 modules that we've got for workplace profile on Catalyst, to keep extending their learning there. And then possibly 3 months down the track, maybe at the earliest for Agile EQ. But I would certainly want to make sure they're using workplace before I would take them on to Agile EQ. This is a good question. Someone has said, for a client, individual coaching situation, this is a great tool. If you do any kind of coaching, you don't have to have a group of people to do Agile EQ. If you're working with someone doing one-on-one coaching with them, and you can see from the feedback that they're getting and what you're seeing, that they're not very agile in adapting to different situations. And the profile is geared up well for you as a coach to take them through their results and help them develop action plans and help them to choose which mindset they really need to work on the most. And you can still use the videos to show them. You can sort of jump around, pick the ones you want to use. The PowerPoint with the videos in it is set up so that you can just jump from video to video, whichever you want to watch. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we're just coming up 12 noon here in Australia. Thank you to those of you from the East Coast of the US who joined us, Michelle and Bonnie, and staying up a bit later tonight. But great to have you here. Any questions that come up later, please contact our office or contact me, keith@integro.com.au. Be happy to get on a call with you and discuss things further. Okay, so thank you very much. See you again soon.